Gentlemen, we apologize for the delay in today's hearing. I guess you kind of got the drill now. If you can, give us a 5-minute overview of what perspective you bring to this crisis into Georgia, and we'll engage in 10 minutes of colloquy.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Senators. I appreciate the invitation. I respect your state and the sovereignty you have, and I'm just thrilled to be here to at least help give y'all a snapshot of what we're going through and what citizens of Texas are going through on a day-to-day basis that is worse than anyone could have ever imagined. It's been going on for 2 years. Just to tell you, I'm a state representative in East Texas. I represent 3 counties. We represent about 200,000 people. And a lot of people think that the border security issue is just an issue for the border states. But illegal immigration, it's a national issue. Georgia's affected by the flood of illegal immigrants, drugs, human trafficking that came across the southern border every day. And since Joe Biden took office, over 5 million illegals have crossed the border, 5 million people that are unvetted, who take jobs, your citizens. They have no respect, accountability for our laws. So far this year, Customs and Border Patrol has seized enough fentanyl to kill almost 20 million people. That's twice the population of Georgia. We all know that Biden's federal government will never secure the border, or keep our nation safe. That's why, for the second session in a row, I've filed legislation to build a border wall. And I live in East Texas, and people said, why would you file a bill to build a border wall? Because I realize it's all of our problem. So just several things. You've heard these local elected officials. Just think about the Texas DPS, state police. They're scattered throughout the state. Right now, they're being pulled away from all areas of Texas to go work the border. We have fewer law enforcement back home. Back home, we have law enforcement still getting into car chases, bailouts with illegals. They're still dealing with drug problems. And a lot of our law enforcement is there. We have to stand up for ourselves. The federal government is not going to do the job. They've made that clear. And so I'm here just to tell you some things that I'm hoping for your consideration of possibly helping us. There's several items. So the first thing is we didn't pass the bill to build the border wall. But through executive order, the governor started putting up barriers. So we couldn't arrest people that were criminal trespass unless they had crossed a fence line. So for a while, we had a state of Texas putting up barbed wire fence just so local law enforcement could arrest people. And as you heard earlier, hoping they had jail space to actually house the people that they did get. And then in my bill, I had a crowdsourcing option where people could donate money to the border wall, and that's in there. The only difference where we're at is my bill charged the federal government for the building of the border wall and charged them interest. They like to tell us that we can't do this, we can't build the wall, we can't enforce because it's not our responsibility. I think we should do it anyways. And then because they say it is their job and we can't do it, we send them the invoice. And so I would ask that if you were, as the Senate, I know you can't control the governor, I know you can't control the House, but you decide what you'd be willing to do as the Senate and see if your leadership will inspire others and other states, even though you're not a border state. Donate money, any portion, to our border wall fund. Right now, it's... there's been $55 million donated. The largest donation is from someone not in Texas, in North Dakota, donated to the border wall over $50 million. There are people all over the country that understand what's happening and understand how important it is that we solve this problem. But if you would be willing to donate to help towards the border wall, it shows that y'all are in the fight with us. Send the federal government the invoice for every penny y'all help us with and charge them interest. The other thing, consider some type of interstate compact where I would hope that what you would do is, if maybe y'all could declare the border an invasion, and then with that, if the state of Texas declares the border an invasion, then your National Guard comes and helps. Because I believe, I don't know this is just speculation, that Georgia taxpayers may be upset if their National Guard's being sent to Texas just to process people, give them debit cards and cell phones, and those people are coming to Georgia anyways. I would hope that you'd be willing to help. If your valuable resources, the men and women of the Georgia National Guard, are going to come help, make sure that their efforts are not in vain and that they are helping repel the invasion. Another thing I hope you would do is just identify the cartels as narco-terrorist organizations. There's probably some other items trying to, as mentioned by the sheriff, about getting at their pocketbook. But I just, like I say, I appreciate the opportunity to just share with y'all what's going on in Texas. But then also just ask you to consider how you can possibly help us.
Senator Robertson.
Thank you. Representative, did I hear you say that even though you live in East Texas and do not have a border, that you dropped a piece of legislation because it's good for the entire state of Texas?
Yes, sir. It's
Thank
the right.
you. Yeah.
Yes, sir. It's the right thing to do. When I started hearing, and I met the people that were in the panel before, I don't represent them, but I wanted to talk to them and help them because I realized what they're going through. And when I heard that there's counties that didn't have enough body bags to take care of all the dead people. And by the way, here's one of those bracelets they put on the people. I had this, someone pulled them out of a bag. There's 30 or 40, and they say they're all over the ground, all over the brush. And they treat people as commodities, and they get them across only to have them be indebted to the cartels. Now, one question I like to ask is, whatever amount they owe the cartel, how does that conversation go when you think you've paid off your bill? And then another thing that I learned from Judge Carruthers is someone dies in the brush, and this is about human compassion. It's not about political. There are families that are being stalked in their homes that are Texans. They have to be in home before dark. There are businesses that are destroyed, agriculture businesses that are having a very hard time getting along, and on and on and on. You got county budgets just being drained, resources, the crime, but then if you think about the people who are coming across. If they are a family just seeking employment, do you know what happens to the people that get caught by the cartel? It's not good. Those people are then brought in the system. They owe money. And here's the one thing, like I say, Judge Carruthers had mentioned. And so let's sadly imagine someone just dies in the brush. This is hard country. They die in the brush. They go find family and they bring them through, and they never know what happened to their family member. So whether your heart for the border is on the illegal alien, whether it's on the taxpayer in Texas, the businesses, just how we're functioning, the level of crime, wherever it is, you want the border sealed and secured. Because it's catastrophic in people's lives, what's happening. And the whole time, as we lose the amount of fentanyl deaths, you name it, the cartel's gaining. And that's the problem. They win when we lose. And anyway.
Yeah, we got a question from Senator McLaurin.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. And I guess, just in terms of funding for border security, I mean, there's kind of this all hands on deck mentality I think you're bringing, saying, look, Georgia can help, different places can help. Within Texas, and I don't know too much about local state government laws, whatever, I mean, do municipal governments have the ability to issue bonds and, finance? I would imagine there's some limitation on what municipal governments could do based on the fact their tax base can only support so much of the wall, and there's a hard limit on that.
Right.
But is that a funding source that's possible or no?
No. I mean, you have ag. A lot of these areas, I mean, very hard land. You take 10 acres here in Georgia, how many cows you can put on that and be supported, or 100 acres. You take those same amount of cattle, you put them in South Texas, and it's a way bigger area. It's just hard country. There's not a lot of rain, not a lot of vegetation. Everything's got thorns on it. It's tough. And so there's not a lot of tax base there from all the agriculture, from the property tax. So one, as I mentioned, you've got sheriff's departments and others. They don't have enough body bags, right? They don't have enough. What was it? County Attorney Brent Smith. They didn't have enough folders. They blew their budget very quickly in 2021. Just couldn't even buy folders to do their paperwork. So the money's not there for the simple things, the office supplies, the feeding of the inmates, transporting. And then, a lot of their vehicles are getting in car chases. What I was told before 2021, that law enforcement, they could expect to get in chases once a month. They started getting in chases 4 and 5 times a week. And so the wear and tear on their vehicles. So just trying to keep up with the stress it's putting on their county. And this is only taking care of the illegals coming through. This isn't taking care of their citizens. And their main job is take care of their citizens, offering 911 services. There's people that are caught out in the brush. There's no major landmark to point out. They're out in the brush, and they're holding up the 911 line, calling and begging for help in another language. And then there's residents in Texas calling, asking for 911, and they can't call and get help. I mean, it's just a mess all around. So the state of Texas has put a lot of money in through Operation Lone Star to help. The federal government has done some, but the problem is the numbers of illegals still coming through are not reducing. I mean, we have a lot of numbers of apprehensions. 336,000 apprehensions, 23,000 criminal arrests, 20,000 felony charges, and 354 million lethal doses of fentanyl. That's just from Operation Lone Star alone, and that's less than 2 years. And so the money is not there. And then you got everyone's having a hiring problem, right? I mean, our jails are having a hard time being staffed, trying to employ people. Well, Border Patrol and others, they're having a hard time. We had people going, I mean, just think about what was going on then. We had people that were going to have to show some type of vaccine, like they had to prove they had their vaccines to do anything. The southern border's wide open, and all these people were coming across, and no one cared if they had a COVID test. We had businesses shut down. There's people whose businesses aren't open today. I don't know about Georgia. In Texas, there's people who their business didn't open today because COVID claimed their business, but the border wide open. And so the money is a problem. But, to have resources watching the border all day long is expensive. That's why the border wall is not the main tool. It is just a helpful tool. If we can stop just the flow and make it to where it's harder for them to get in, we can find more. We can capture more, maybe fewer will come in. I mean, and I've seen videos from the sheriff. They're just getting small jet airliners, flying them over the border, dropping them off at municipal airports, 20 and 30 at a time. And the other things that are going on, I mean, the cartels, there's reports of thousands and thousands of drone flights into the U.S., into Texas, looking for maybe their product, making sure their product is getting to where it needs to go, maybe looking for law enforcement or where to go, where to not go. I mean, they have an all-out operation making sure they have control of the border, and we're struggling with money. And we've put a lot of money towards the border. I believe I heard something just last week. 14 years ago, we put like $40 million in border, and now we're over like $4 billion in Texas. We're putting $4 billion into border security. I mean, we're putting money into it. The problem is we aren't stopping it. And that's where I'm calling in. I believe it would it would show, I think, great leadership from Georgia if y'all said, you know what, that's an invasion, because all the problems that we're seeing at Ground Zero, they're ending up all over the country. Declare it an invasion. And then if you're going to help us, I would say, what would be best for Georgia? What's the best and the most respectful way of the men and women of your National Guard, the best use of your taxpayer dollars? Is it to go process people and help make sure they're bust around the state, given cell phones or debit cards? Or is it to repel the invasion?
Okay.
A couple times. I mean, to some extent, I've got to give respect to Major General National Guard who came to testify today. I think the nature of their service is more extensive than, sort of the talking points about assisting migrants and coming to the country. Your point's well taken that the National Guard can only do so much if it is acting in a subsidiary or auxiliary capacity to the federal government. But I want to make sure, at least in this committee today, that we respect the contributions that the National Guard of Georgia has made at the border, because that's they don't have to go there, but they do as part of a federal deployment. So
and they're following their orders, absolutely, because it's
Right.
not declared an invasion. They're going there and helping as though they've helped neighboring states with hurricanes, with flooding, and that's good and helpful. But when you see, what we're dealing with, they need. Well, it's not Georgia National Guard. It's leadership. It's Governor of Texas and others need to say this is an invasion and we want to repel the invasion. And then as if y'all were to be willing to help and say, yeah, we want to help repel the invasion because that helps protect Georgia, right? And y'all, there's still all our National Guards doing a great job on the border. But we've got to have leadership saying we've got to shut it down. And I'll tell you, the Texas Rangers, they worked themselves out of a job 5 times. One time, they had a problem with cattle thieves. People coming across Rio Grande, stealing cattle. And a company of Rangers went across and they killed that guy that was stealing cattle, and they didn't have a cattle theft in Texas for 100 years. We've dealt with it before. Governor Houston, he sent a letter to the Secretary of War asking for ammunition and firearms to repel an invasion from the Mexicans. And Texas has done it in the past. We're just choosing not to be as hard and firm to stop it.
Representative, thank you. We're going to move on